Hey Tyler, how's your list going for best films or favorite films of the decade?
I've gotten it, down pretty well, but we've still got another year of films left in this decade, so, there's still room for changes.
Can you explain that?
Well, what do you mean? I mean, there was no year zero, so the decade ends on December 31st, 2020.
Okay, you might need to correct everyone in the media then.
Yeah, I know.
Hello and welcome to Ignore the Bell. My name is Nathan.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm Luke.
And if you did not catch that, we are talking about our favorite, we're not saying best, we're not saying top, we're saying our favorite films of the past, not quite a decade. Because Tyler is insistent on this point that it is not the end of the decade with 2019 coming to an end and 2020 starting up. So this is our New Year's edition of the podcast, and these are just going to be our favorites. So movies that we look at, and at least for me, how I've compiled my list is I have said, what films am I essentially most grateful for that I got in the last 9 years? Where I say, I'm so glad that film exists. I appreciate it so much, but not necessarily saying, for cinematic quality and merit and all of this, it is better than everything else. Because I think that is kind of a fool's errand anyway to try to do that.
Yeah.
But in any case, so you get to see what made the list, what didn't make the list, and we're going to go in order. So what we'll do is, I believe it's going to be Luke, you're going to start, and then Tyler, you're going to give your movies, then I'm going to give my movies, and then at the end, then we're going to go over our honorable mentions.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, we do have a sponsor for today's podcast. Let me just get the ad copy here. So our sponsor for today is the word pedantic. So pedantic means like a pedant, someone who's too concerned with literal accuracy or formality. It's a negative term that implies someone that's showing off book learning or trivia, especially in a tiresome way. Tyler, can you think of an illustration of a pedantic argument, particularly about the past decade?
Well, that's very interesting. The U.S. Naval Observatory has actually specifically stated that the decade does end with the year ending in zero, as well as the Farmer's Almanac going along with that. So I would say that both of them are, presenting a very pedantic argument for when the decade should end.
To quote Michael Scott speaking to Toby, why are you the way you are? Yeah, we've got our own pedant here on the podcast. So, yeah, we deal with this all the time. It's not the decade. Fine. Okay. You've convinced me. All right, folks, I hope you enjoy.
Oh man, I wish this discussion could go on forever.
Ignore the bell. We're gonna keep going, people.
All right, so we are going through our favorite 9 films of the past 9 years, not quite a decade. And so we have not talked about these ahead of time, so I don't even know what's on your lists. You don't know what's on my list. And we're not necessarily going in any particular order, at least with my list. I ended up just putting it in chronological order, so I started with the earliest films and then going to the most recent. That's how I organized mine. But I'm not saying this is like the top, number 9, number 8. I'm not doing that whatsoever. Are you guys, did you organize it similarly?
Mine I do have more of a numerical order because, some of them are like, they are how I would rank them in terms of how much I like them. And then others I'm just like, I kind of like them all the same, so I'll just give them a number.
Right.
Because I can't decide which one is better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine. I kind of decided to go with 9 different genre categories and did one for each category because I'm very pedantic.
Yeah, and I only just saw your comment. Then we were talking about choosing our list, and you're like, wait, you guys didn't go on IMDb and look to see which films made over $1 million domestically. Because Tyler, you had, how many did you end up narrowing your list down to, your initial winnowing of the list?
It was about 60. I think it was just over 60 different films that I thought, oh yeah, I really liked that one. And then, yeah. So it was really difficult for me to narrow it down to 9.
Yeah.
But yes, I really did. I did go to IMDb. I looked up all films from each decade and was able to sort the list by box office revenue domestically, and looked at the entire list up until the movies stopped making over $1 million, because I figured I'm definitely not going to have seen those that have earned less than that. And then I did also look through the list of all the different Netflix original films that have been released over the past
yeah, because you're going to miss those if you're just doing it that way with box office revenue. That's interesting. Yeah. I just wrote down like 9. I just wrote 1 through 9, and I struggled to come up with 9. I'm just like, that doesn't deserve it. Nope, that's not good enough. Not good enough. And that is exactly how I am with basically film and literature and everything else. It's my standard is up here. Yeah. All right. So Luke, I want to hear yours. So go ahead and get us started.
All right. So the first one on my list is Looper. I really like this movie because
Rian Johnson film.
That's right. He did not make the worst Star Wars movie. J.J. Abrams did. So anyway, so I just like this movie because, well, a lot about it. The time travel I thought was done really well. It's really clever and interesting, and a lot different than other time travel movies. And then I just really like the world building and the characters, and yeah, just all of it is just really interesting and new to me anyway.
Okay, what about how do you deal with the eyebrows on Joseph Gordon-Levitt? You know what I mean? Like not just the eyebrows, but like the brow itself, trying to make him look more like Bruce Willis. Like, did you not find that distracting for the entire film?
Well, I got to watch this movie when I was a little younger, because it did come out in 2012. And for everybody out there who doesn't know, I would be about 10 when that happened. So I probably watched it when I was, well, maybe 11. I might have watched it when I was 11, but so that didn't distract me when I watched it. But
right, you didn't grow up watching Tommy Solomon on Third Rock from the Sun.
Yeah. I did.
Right. So that's the thing. Like, I grew up with it, and I'm going, that's not what his face looks like.
Yeah. So for me, it wasn't very distracting. I'm sure if I watched it right now, I would be like, wow, that's very weird. Like, how did I not see that before? But yeah.
I haven't even seen this film. So
I was going to say, Tyler, have you even seen Looper?
No, not yet.
Okay. All right. That's a good choice. All right, what's your next one?
All right, so my next one is Captain America Civil War, because I'm a huge Marvel fan, and this was easily my favorite MCU movie, and I really loved everything about where they took it. I liked a lot of what they did with the characters. I thought it worked really well, and I think it was easily the best MCU movie in my opinion. And yeah, I just really love what they did with the characters and how it actually affected what happened in later movies to some degree. And yeah.
Tyler, do you agree with that? Do you think it's I literally haven't made it through that movie. I tried so many times. I turned it off. All of the MCU movies, like if I make it to the end of one, then it's sort of an accomplishment for me. So I can't comment. But Tyler, do you think is that fair? Is that the best MCU film?
I don't agree.
Oh.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think honestly still the best MCU film is the very first Iron Man movie. I don't know. I just I prefer that one over all the others.
Okay. That's not even in the past, not quite a decade. So
yeah.
Get that garbage out of here.
I don't think I have any MCU films on
I didn't
on
think
my
either
list.
of you would, but I'm like, I just really like Civil War.
No, I have no
Yeah,
issue with that being
yeah,
Yeah,
one of your favorites. And
yeah,
I respect the choice. That's perfectly
yeah.
fine.
I mean, hey,
Um,
we got Spider-Man in that movie, and that was cool.
yeah.
all right, next one.
So the next one is The Nice Guys, um, and this movie I thought was just really fun, and it had the characters had like such great interaction, and that's why it was like so enjoyable. Like Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe did an amazing job, and the writing was great too. And it's a very weird movie to me anyway because like a lot of uh, like I don't really see movies that are this odd, I guess I could say. So it was really interesting because like it is definitely the most unique movie on my list, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so that is a lot of the reasons why I like it so much. And yeah,
Okay, I have not seen The Nice Guys. I'm not really
I have
familiar
not.
with it at all. But I do have two Ryan Gosling movies on my list, so there's that.
yeah. So it's basically just a kind of like two cop. Well, they're not really cops, I guess, but it's in the 70s and they're kind of like
Hmm.
investigating the death of a porn star. And yeah, it's a really interesting movie.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
So I guess I'll move on to the next pick, which is John Wick Chapter 2 I went with because um, I at first really didn't want to put John Wick on my list because I was like, I don't really think it's that great. But I was just like, you know what? The more I think about it, I just love the action sequences, and it's easily the best action we've gotten in the not quite a decade.
Hmm.
And I just am like, people make more action like this because I
Agreed.
like to see
Yeah,
what's going on.
yeah.
And so I really liked all of it, the fight choreography and the way the action is done, and just that we can actually see the action for once. And I just really love that. And yeah.
That's great. I respect that choice. And I like John Wick Chapter 2, the way it continues to expand out the universe in the
Mm,
John Wick films.
Yeah.
yeah. All right. And so at number five is my favorite comic book movie of all time, which I'm sure people are going to disagree with, is X-Men First Class. Magneto is like my favorite villain uh, in comics, and well, not just that, but in comic book movies. And I think he
Mhm.
was done so fantastically. So yeah, I just really like what they did with Magneto, and even some of the newer mutants that they were just introducing, even though unfortunately they all pretty much get killed off instantly in the next movies. But um, I thought that they did a really good job with introducing them, even as like kind of secondary characters. But yeah, I just really love what they did with Magneto in particular.
Can you remind me, X-Men First Class? Because I've seen them. Like all of the X-Men movies except for the most recent one. Is that the one where you start getting like they um, are going back to whatever it is, the 1970s,
It takes
60s?
place in the 60s, yeah, and they're trying to stop the Cuban Missile Crisis. Well, it basically has the Cuban Missile Crisis, and
Yeah.
Right. So they
and
recast them
it.
with younger actors, right? In that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And it
No,
does have a great cameo by Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
right. Yeah. No, I really do like that film. I remember when I first watched it, I thought that I was not going to like it at all, that I was going to be very disappointed, but I ended up really enjoying that. And I'm like, oh, I want more films with these actors playing in these
Yeah.
roles.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Uh-huh. Um, all right. So I guess I'll go to number four, which is Baby Driver. Um, this movie is just like I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. Like this kind of movie is typically not ones that I like really like, but I just love the way it was done. Even like just, well, of course, the music when he's driving and how that's been done. But also more of like just the story I find is just so interesting, especially the characters. Um, and yeah, so I just really like what they did story-wise and characters because uh, it was just really interesting and a lot different than what I am used to seeing. And I thought they did an excellent job.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Uh, Edgar Wright directed that film
Yeah.
and wrote it. Yeah, the that film is honestly so incredible, and I'm pretty sure that Nathan has still not seen it. Is that correct?
I have not. I know you've been trying for a while to convince me to watch it, and the trailer makes me want to burn the world to the ground. It looks so awful. I'm like, I will destroy every screen on Earth before seeing this thing. But I haven't watched it. Maybe I'll watch it and I'll think that it's great. I don't know. There's just a whole lot about it for one thing, and I've said this before, I have never liked Kevin Spacey. The second I see him on screen, I go, ugh. And somehow I still really, really enjoyed House of Cards. I was able to get over, I think in part because he plays Frank so well in that. It's not just I'm watching Kevin Spacey, and my obsession with politics helps as well. But that's really the only Kevin Spacey anything I've ever enjoyed. Everything else that he's in, I hate. I mean, I like Seven, I guess, as well as a film. So there's that. But he's not really in that too prominently. I'll try it, though. I'll try it, guys. Because that's two of you saying it's great. So
I really didn't think I would find it this good. Like, honestly, I was like, yeah, I'm sure it'll be all right. And then I watched it and I was like, wow, that was a lot better than I was expecting. Like, that blew my expectations away.
Okay, I guess my only question, and I'm not trying to start anything here, but my only question with this is, like, this kid insists that he has to have music on while he's driving, right? He's got to have his earbuds in. Is this correct?
Well, it's for a reason, though.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the reason?
Well, basically, he got in a car crash while he was a kid, and then his one ear got, like, messed up, so there's a ringing in it. So to drown out the ringing noise, he always has an earbud in that ear.
Okay. I mean, your dad is very involved with motorsports, right? Would your dad ever encourage you to, like, if you really want to get the most performance out of your car, don't listen to the engine, but instead listen to music?
Very true.
That's my point. I looked at the trailer. I'm like, this is so stupid. And everybody who doesn't know anything about motorsports is just like, wow, I guess he's just a genius at this. And I'm like, this is idiotic. But that's why it doesn't have to match reality. I can be fine with it not matching reality. I'm just saying that's one of my issues with it. It's Kevin Spacey and then that, and I'm like, ugh.
Right.
All right. So
on to the next.
This brings me into the top three, which is starting off for me with Interstellar, which I just love this movie. And, well, Christopher Nolan, pretty much, I don't think there's a movie out there that I don't like of his. This movie was just so amazing. I loved everything about it, the characters, the story, and a lot of the visuals, too. Like, the visuals were very well done. And it's one of my favorite sci-fi movies in a long time. And I just thought it was done so well. Yeah, especially the characters.
I agree. I'm watching Nathan's face to see what his reaction is.
We've talked about this before because we haven't done a dedicated Christopher Nolan podcast yet. We've talked about some Christopher Nolan films in, like, from different ways, like World War II films, like Dunkirk, and we talked about it with Batman. My theory, I have a theory on Christopher Nolan, which is he makes a good film every other film he makes. So I basically hate half of his movies and I love the other half. And he just goes in that order where I go, hate it, love it, hate it, love it, hate it, love it. And yeah, I mean, I'll that one kind of throws it off a little bit.
Mm.
For certain reasons, I don't. There's stuff that I don't like in Interstellar, but overall, as a film, then I would say it's very, very well done. It's not my kind of film. There's stuff that I don't appreciate in it, but I don't have an issue with it. It is one of his best films. It really is. So I'll give it to him there. But of course, he was coming off of that awful The Dark Knight Rises. So I go, it stands to reason. But that's where I'm saying that it kind of he threw off the order because he went Interstellar and then Dunkirk, and I'm like, oh, I really like Dunkirk. But I think maybe I'll extra hate Tenet. Because he just did two in a row, or maybe I'll just hate Tenet and then the next one as well, and now it's going to be too bad, too good, too bad, too good. Yeah, we'll see. All right, but yeah, no, that's a good choice. That's a good choice.
All right, and so my number two, which I was very hesitant about putting it this high up because I just saw it, but Ford versus Ferrari, I just absolutely love this movie so much.
Do they listen to music when they're driving?
They do not. It would be very odd because they would have to have like an intense radio with them.
Right.
This is like,
right.
I don't even remember what year, but it's like
1950s maybe.
Yeah, something like that. So they would have to have quite the radio in their car. But oh my goodness, this movie was so good. Like, I don't really know what else to say about it other than just I love it so much, and I think it's just executed perfectly. Basically, I love how especially the characters and the interaction between Christian Bale and Matt Damon, or not Matt Damon. His name is escaping me right now. But anyway, the interaction between the main characters in the movie was just done so well, and yeah, I thought it was just an absolutely amazing movie.
Okay, I continue to hear good things about it, so and I feel like that's definitely something that I would enjoy. So when I get to it, then I'm going to be excited to watch it. Certainly, Tyler, you have not seen it?
No, I don't. I don't have a particular interest in cars or racing, so I have no real inclination to watch the film.
Yeah, we know
I
that
think,
like your most hated Pixar movie is called Cars.
Yes.
Which is about cars and racing. You're like, hated it.
Yeah, I think even if you don't like racing and cars and all that, it's still a really good movie.
Okay.
And they made the racing actually really interesting. And then also when I got back, I had to search some stuff up because I was like, wait, this is based off a true story, so I want to know how much of it is actually accurate. And everything I searched up actually happened, and I was I was so surprised when I found that out. I was like, wow, like usually that is not the case. Usually it's just like, oh, we need to make dramatic effects.
Right.
All right, so now I'll move into my number one, which I know is like one of my weirder picks for most people anyway, which is War for the Planet of the Apes. I was debating between this and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes because I love both of those movies. But War for the Planet of the Apes is, I did not think it would be better than Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And then I watched it and I loved it so much. And I think it was such a perfect ending to the trilogy. And also another controversial thing I'm going to say, my favorite trilogy of all time.
Wow.
And yeah,
that's very interesting. More than the original Star Wars?
A little.
Oh wow. Okay.
Which kind of hurts me to say that because I love the original Star Wars trilogy, but oh my goodness, these movies.
Do you think you'd love the original Star Wars if like every character was a Wookiee? Do you think that would it's just more monkey action in the movie? That's what Star Wars is missing.
Exactly. Like I think the Empire should have all been humans.
Right. Oh, I love this idea. All of the
like,
rebels are Wookiees.
But oh my goodness, I also did not think I would like a movie like this because At the beginning of the trilogy, I was like, oh, there's no way I'm gonna like this. I think it was the first Planet of the Apes movie I actually saw was Rise, I think anyway.
Oh, okay.
And so I was just like, this is probably gonna be all right. And then I watched it and I was like, that was so good. And then I watched Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and I was like, that was like so amazing. And then I was like, there's no way War for the Planet of the Apes is gonna do as good of a job. And then I watched it and I was so surprised at what happened. And it was like easily the most exciting viewing of a movie I've ever had for War for the Planet of the Apes. And yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a good choice. I respect the list. And you had more variety than I thought you would, legitimately.
I think there's at least 3 from 20th Century Fox, and I was like, oh my goodness, I did not know I liked 20th Century Fox.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
My top 2 are 20th Century Fox, Ford vs. Ferrari and War for the Planet of the Apes.
Huh. Okay. All right. Well, Tyler, let's move into your list.
Yeah. All right. So I think I will start off by doing my superhero film, which would be X-Men First Class.
Wow.
It is my favorite. My favorite superhero film of the past 9 years. I really love the time period that it's set in. I really love just the characters, seeing, Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy as Magneto and Professor X is incredible. And you get that, like, honestly, the greatest cameo I think of all time by Hugh Jackman. It's as Wolverine, because he just says 2 words and they're so perfect, and that's how you do a PG-13 movie while still including an actual, realistic Wolverine.
Yeah.
So, no, absolutely, love that one. All right, next, for comedy, favorite comedy I think is The Muppets from 2011. It was a great return for the classic characters of the Muppets. I mean, it sees them all, they've been scattered for however many years, and then they're trying to get back together and save the old Muppet theater. It's just a really great film with like a lot of great, great music in it as well.
I don't think I've seen that. I'm sure I have not seen that.
I watched it once. But I like
that was such a good pause. Once. It was a mistake.
I did like it. It was pretty good from what I remember.
Right.
Again, I'm probably like 9.
I like this though, Tyler, the way you're organizing your list. Like, I don't know. Maybe we all should have done it this way, because I don't really have much like focus with my list. Just these are my favorites. You can see after like I go through all of them, I'm kind of looking at it going, oof, these like say a lot about me. It's kind of concerning, but but yeah, this is a good way of dividing it. Okay, so that was your favorite comedy, not best, but your favorite comedy.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Favorite, I guess, action/adventure. I didn't really know what to do for this, but I really wanted to include Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Yay!
I really enjoyed
Is this
it.
like out of the 3 you've done, there's already 2 overlaps?
No, he said War for the Planet of the Apes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. And I haven't seen War for the Planet of the Apes yet. But I really like Rise of the Planet of the Apes because it does take that fun spin on the original Planet of the Apes franchise by saying, okay, now we're going to see, the world is as we know it, and then we're seeing the very beginnings of the apes overtaking the planet, and it's got James Franco in it, and John Lithgow, and yeah, just it's really really good. I love the the connection that James Franco has with Caesar is fantastic. You get that great, callback of "Get your stinking paws off me." um,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's really, I don't know, just really fantastic. Yeah.
Okay.
uh,
What category was that?
that was action slash adventure.
Okay, you have a
And
different action category.
sorry.
Do you have a different action category?
Um, no, I have. Okay, so yeah, like the genres that I have are crime, superhero, dramatic comedy, biopics, comedy, horror slash thriller, science fiction, musical slash fantasy, and then action slash adventure.
Okay.
Uh, and I know that there is like this was just like the way that I organized it because like there are definitely other really watch, and so there wasn't really favorites from there. So I kind of took like what my list had gotten narrowed down to and picked 9 different genres from that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Um, and because that helped me to further narrow down my list. Um, all right, and I guess let's go with I guess dramatic comedy, and I honestly did not know where to put this, but Inside Out by
Oh.
Pixar, 2015's Inside Out. I consider it a dramatic comedy. It really does, like, it's all about emotions. It's so well done. And I mean, like, we talked about it during our Pixar discussion.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, it is probably Pixar's best film, certainly of the last, you know, uh, certainly of the last decade. But I think just in general, like it might be their actual best film, and it's so enjoyable to watch with Amy Poehler, and oh my goodness, now I'm blanking on the name for what is her name? Phyllis something? She plays Phyllis, but I think her name might
Yeah,
actually be.
I believe her first name is Phyllis, but I can't remember what her last name is.
Yeah. Anyway, she is so perfectly cast as Sadness. Amy Poehler is the perfect joy. You've got Lewis Black as Anger. Like it's all just perfect. Yeah, and directed by Pete Docter. Um, yeah, and I didn't want to have like an animation category because like animation is not a genre. Like it it kind of is, but that's really just another medium.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
um, all right, so for um, I'm going to go to horror slash thriller. 10 Cloverfield Lane. That
Okay.
film is like I really enjoy it. It's not the best horror or thriller
No, just your
that I've
favorite.
seen. Yeah, I really like everything with John Goodman. His character is so unsettling. You don't know, which way the story is going to go. It's like, oh, is he crazy or is he right? Is he crazy? Oh, he's definitely crazy. Oh no, wait, he's right. Oh, he's crazy and he's right. Like it's just
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
to see that progression. And yeah, uh, I don't know, and I mean I do have so many other films that were like in this category that all became honorable mentions and
Yeah.
then
We'll get to
fell
the
off.
honorable mentions.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um. All right. For musical slash fantasy, I have Christopher Robin from 2018,
Oh.
which is yeah, a reimagining, I guess, of Winnie the Pooh, set, with Christopher Robin having grown up, played by Ewan McGregor, who is always fantastic. Yeah, the way that they designed, all the different characters of the Hundred Acre Wood, I think are fantastic. It's just such an enjoyable film of, yeah, I don't know, like, because I think that everybody sort of has, wish to go back to childhood in some way and, like be with your childhood friends. And I just think that the film does a really perfect job of that, like it also, I like that it doesn't skip a beat with Christopher Robin, like Ewan McGregor's character, ever being like, oh, this can't be happening or whatever. Like he's literally like, oh, Pooh Bear, what are you doing here? Like it's just so great to see that it's just, he hasn't lost that belief. And it's, yeah,
Right.
I really love that.
Yeah, it does a very good job as far as tone of achieving melancholy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. There's a touch of sadness throughout the entire
Yeah.
film. Yeah. But it's not it's not a depressive movie. It's not, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would be melancholic. All right,
Yeah.
that's good.
All right, I don't want to save this one for last, so I'm going to say my favorite crime film, and actually my number one of the past 9 years is Baby Driver. Oh my goodness, I love this film so much. Within the first year, I watched it 3 times. I own the soundtrack. I listen to it all the time. Edgar Wright did such a fantastic job. Like when he was writing the screenplay for it, then he actually put like notes saying you should turn on like this song while reading this scene because he knew what songs he wanted to include from the very beginning and the way that the film is structured around music, that he incorporates it into the story, whether or not you agree with that being appropriate, or realistic, I guess, is one thing, but he does have an explanation for why there's always music playing, and yeah, it's playing with diegetic and non-diegetic sound in that way, where we have one character who can hear the music all the time, and I mean there are different scenes, where other characters listen to it, but it's so well directed, so incredibly well edited. It's got incredible sequences. Like with the car chases and or I guess escape scenes. I don't know what to call them, but yeah, it's just oh, it's so fantastic. It took me by surprise. I watched that immediately after watching Dunkirk, like literally the same day. I watched both of them in the movie theaters. In the movie theater, went right from Dunkirk to Baby Driver. Had such a fun time with both films, but Baby Driver has stuck with me. It's a film that I love to go back and watch again and again.
Okay. Maybe I'll watch it and then we'll do a podcast in which we just argue. I don't know. I continue to think there's no way I'm going to like this movie. But
and that's
okay.
Totally possible.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. It's just, you said that's your favorite of the past not quite a decade?
Yep. And Inside Out is my number 2, by the way.
Yeah, and even with that I'm going to continue to press you on that Coco might be better as a Pixar film.
I haven't seen Coco, but I do like Inside Out a lot.
Inside Out never achieves the depth of emotion that Coco achieves by the end. It doesn't even come close. Like, it really doesn't. With the generations and the grandmother or the great-grandmother hearing her father's song sung to her by her great-grandson, and that connection to the past and the way the entire family is connected together by music. And it is so moving and powerful, and reaching back into your family's ancestry and undoing this tragedy generations later. Inside Out does not come close to that, which is, I'm not saying that that's necessarily what defines a film, is the depth of emotion, but I'm saying I don't think it's like an undisputed thing of Inside Out being the best Pixar's ever done.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. So moving on, and I need to figure out which one I want to say last. All right, moving on. I think I'm going to do biopics slash historical. And for this one, it is the film that changed Nathan's mind, possibly, about Mary Poppins, Saving Mr. Banks.
Yeah. Don't overdo it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it is such an incredible film. You've got Tom Hanks and Emma Thompson. Uh, yeah, just it's so good. It's so emotional. Walt Disney and P.L. Travers. Uh, I mean, I'm fascinated by the Walt Disney Company, as you can probably tell by my list. But Walt Disney, the man himself, I'm fascinated with. I mean, obviously, I love movies and I love theme parks, so it makes sense. But yeah, Saving Mr. Banks just has so much heart and emotion to it. I love it. It's about two different artists in two different media to come together to have some sort of compromise, and it's great.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
I
And we
haven't
had
even seen this movie.
Okay, it's well worth watching. And Tyler and I did do a podcast specifically on Saving Mr. Banks. So
Mhm.
Okay.
you can, like, for anybody who's watching, then you can get all of our thoughts on that. And yeah, that is one of those. It is a movie that I thought I would hate, that I really, really loved. And so if even I can appreciate Saving Mr. Banks, somebody who hates Mary Poppins, British accents, and musicals, I hate all three of those things so much. And if I can watch it and enjoy it, then surely other people can who don't have that aversion to those three things that kind of define Mary Poppins. So, yeah. All right. How many more do you have, Tyler? Was that the last one, or?
I believe I have one more,
Okay.
and this was my number three for the past not quite a decade, and it is 2015's Tomorrowland, directed by Brad Bird. I mean, it's again dealing with that theme park atmosphere, I suppose. And yeah, it's all about a creative who is trying not to focus on the bad things, who is trying to focus on positivity, and I just think that the film does a really great job of that. I know that critics were not fond of it, and I don't think it even did very well at the box office, but I just absolutely loved it, and I love rewatching it, so it's on my list.
Okay. Yeah. So can you guys do me a favor? If you do have it handy, can you tell me the production companies for your movies?
Mhm. So Baby Driver was produced by TriStar Pictures.
Okay.
X-Men First Class by 20th Century Fox. Inside Out by Pixar. Saving Mr. Banks, Walt Disney. The Muppets, Walt Disney. 10 Cloverfield Lane, Paramount Pictures. Tomorrowland, Walt Disney, Christopher Robin, Walt Disney, and Rise of the Planet of the Apes, 20th Century Fox.
I'm so glad that we did that. Because, yeah. So, no, but it says something. And
Yeah.
I think that it's a really interesting way of organizing these lists, is not just thinking about this. I said this before we were recording, but not just thinking about it in terms of director or actor or screenwriter, but then, or even like intellectual property, right? Like whether it fits into a franchise, but then saying production companies, because production companies often are purchasing and then financing and producing films for particular reasons, and they do tend to fit together, at least in interesting ways, but usually they fit together pretty well. All right, Luke, do you have yours?
Yep. So War for the Planet of the Apes is 20th Century Fox. Ford versus Ferrari is also 20th Century Fox. Baby Driver, as Tyler said, is TriStar. X-Men First Class is 20th Century Fox. Interstellar is Warner Brothers, and also Legendary.
And Syncope,
Mhm.
which is just Christopher Nolan's company. But
Yeah. And The Nice Guys was Silver Pictures and Waypoint. Captain America Civil War was obviously Marvel Studios. John Wick was Legendary and Summit. And Looper is DMG, Endgame Entertainment, and Film Nation, which I actually had not heard of any of those.
Okay. So your last couple choices there, Luke, then they're going to have something more in common with my list. So this is the major difference between your list and my list. Goodbye, major production companies. I don't have a single one. Every single movie I have is an independent film. Every single one, which is, if you watch the podcast, then that should be no surprise that but doing my list, I didn't even do it intentionally. I genuinely did not do this intentionally. But then, and I had one that was on the bubble, and I ultimately removed it because I realized, no, it's in part because I've seen it too recently. That's why it's kind of coloring my choice on this. But I
know which one that is.
But yeah, we'll get into it with honorable mentions because I've only got a few honorable mentions. But I chose the films that I just absolutely love from the past not quite a decade. And unsurprisingly, they're all independent films, which is what I have been saying forever on the podcast, what I've been saying my entire life, essentially, ever since I was like an early teen, and then realizing, oh, I don't like mainstream stuff. I just don't. I kind of hate it. So, all right. So we'll get into my list. You guys have seen a couple of these, but generally speaking, not. So and I'm just going to go in order here in terms of chronology. So I'm starting with 2011. So my first film is Drive. This is directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. Nicholas Winding Refn is a Danish director. This is an independent film. It stars Ryan Gosling, Carey Mulligan, Bryan Cranston, Christina Hendricks, Ron Perlman, Oscar Isaac, Albert Brooks. It's got an incredible cast. And Nicholas Winding Refn is far and away, maybe not far and away, because I do have quite a few directors that I really like, but I would say that he is my favorite director of the past decade. He is an incredible director and incredibly controversial, which is true for most stuff that I like. And his films are incredibly violent, brutal, disturbing, deeply upsetting at times, and very grim, which is exactly what I like. So when this is like what I like, my concern, and I guess I'll mention it now. The one that I had kind of on the bubble was Joker, which is 2019. And before I saw Joker, my concern was, is this going to be a dark film for mainstream audiences? Because I'm going to hate it. Because either go dark or don't. Don't give me this halfway pandering BS that's going to appeal to like the masses. Like, either do it or don't. Don't give me this halfway approach to it. Nicholas Winding Refn is an incredibly brave director. One of the bravest directors that we have. Drive is such a great film. The soundtrack is incredible. The stunts in the film, they're all practical effects. I will put Drive up to Baby Driver any day of the week with the soundtrack, the stunts.
Okay, I was going to say that Baby Driver also does all practical effects.
I'll still put up Drive against it.
Okay, yeah, and I have not seen Drive, so I can't say. I just thought that it was worth mentioning.
I have seen both, and I was also considering maybe putting in Drive, but I was like, I don't really know, so it was for me.
Okay, well, I appreciate that you like the film, and it is the sequence that you have in the elevator, which changes everything. I've seen, I forget who it was, but there was a critic who said that film schools are going to be studying that scene for decades. And I agree with that. It is Nicholas Winding Refn. I cannot praise him enough as a director, as a writer. He is really incredible. And so that's my next film on the list is Only God Forgives from 2013, which also stars Ryan Gosling, also directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. This one is much more controversial. It is a much more violent, dark, disturbing film set in Thailand, and it has to do with it focuses in part on Muay Thai, but it's not exactly about that. It's kind of like not even like the seedy underworld, because it's not the underworld of Thailand. It's there of the crime and criminality, but the film, the action sequences, which is most of the film, have got such an they're filmed in a way that are choreographed like a ballet, and the music, and you struggle for meaning. The way he challenges you from a narrative standpoint in terms of chronology to it, and it is upsetting and beautiful all at once. It is the way David Lynch describes Twin Peaks as, the most wonderful dream and the most terrible nightmare all at once. That is exactly what Only God Forgives is. And a lot of people, like, it's one of those films, like, people left the theater halfway through and the rest of them stood up and applauded. Do you know what I mean? It's I don't recommend it for most people. I think most people would hate it, like, legitimately. Like, I don't think that you guys would like Only God Forgives. You can watch it if you want, but for me, it works so well. So that's 2013. My next one is Nightcrawler, which I forced Tyler to watch. So you have actually seen this one, and you don't regret it, right?
No, it's a really good film.
I have good choices here.
I know.
have good taste. I have good taste. Is just I don't watch mainstream stuff. I watch it. I don't like it. So Nightcrawler from 2014, written and directed by Dan Gilroy. And I could just make an entire list of Dan Gilroy films, but I'm choosing not to. So it's got Jake Gyllenhaal, Rene Russo, Riz Ahmed, and Bill Paxton. And it is another film you're going to start to see the connections here. Deeply disturbing. Because my protagonist in the film, he is a stringer who, what this means is he's stringing together different jobs, and he finds his passion in life, in his career, which is to become a stringer. And what they do is they go around to scenes of accidents in Los Angeles, and it doesn't have to be in Los Angeles, but this is where the film takes place. And then if you're the first one there who films it and gets the footage, then you're going to then be able to sell that footage to the nightly news and make money from this. So it's essentially going to the scenes of accidents, filming it. And so you say, like, whoa, that's kind of a morbid, grim thing to do. But not only does he do it, does he fall in love with it, it becomes his artistic pursuit, and he treats it like art. And to the point where he then has to direct and think about lighting and just filming these brutal scenes of violence that have happened on the street, whether it's a car accident or a fire or a murder, that he falls in love with the aesthetics of it. It is in so many ways like an ode to filmmaking and to I would say to independent filmmaking. And it's a great movie. He's not a hero, right? Like, all of my guys are anti-heroes so far, every single one, which is why you can see, like, Joker almost made the list, almost.
Yeah.
And, so number 4 is a horror film, and this one, a lot of people are very familiar with this one because it's an indie horror film that achieved mainstream success to some degree, which is It Follows. And so It Follows is from 2014. It was written and directed by David Robert Mitchell, and it stars Maika Monroe, Keir Gilchrist, Daniel Zavato, Zake Weary, Olivia Liccardi, and Lily Spee. And have you guys seen It Follows?
No,
Are you familiar with it?
not
Uh,
really.
I've heard critics talk about it, but I don't know much more than it's very good.
It is. It is very, very good. There's a bunch of films that kind of came out of the 2010s that are considered elevated horror, which people in the horror community hate the term elevated horror because it basically is saying these are horror films, but they're above horror films because they're exploring themes that, are beyond horror films. It's like, no, 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 they're just excellent horror films. We don't need to hyphenate it. We don't need to qualify it in some way by saying elevated horror. Uh, because yes, they're different from a lot of mainstream horror films, which are just made to make money, not for creative reasons, but they're made to get teenagers to go to the movie theater an opening weekend around like Halloween or whenever else, just to make the studio money. And there's not much depth to these films, but the best horror is dealing with significant themes, serious themes, and so this is certainly one of them. There's a bunch that came out of this. The Babadook is another one that's an indie horror film that was highly praised. Hereditary is, I don't believe it's an independent film, but Hereditary is an incredible horror film that's also labeled like elevated horror. But my favorite is It Follows, because essentially the plot is, and this is what makes it such a great horror film, and I do plan on writing about this at some point. There is essentially a monster. I don't know how else to describe it, where it attaches itself. It's basically, it attaches itself as a kind of STD. So if you have sex with somebody and they have that monster attached to them, that monster is now going to be coming after you, and it's just going to follow you wherever you go. And the only way you can shake it is to have sex with somebody else to then pass it on to that next person. So you are condemning this next person, but it's the only way to survive. So the only way to distance yourself, because if the monster actually gets that person that you have sex with, it's then going to come back to you. It's just going to go back until it gets to the first person. So the only way to really, there's basically this ethical conundrum of the film is so freaking fascinating, because the only way to ultimately stop the monster is to just say, everyone who has been promiscuous is going to die. Everyone who's within this, STD monster's lineage, like it'll just go back to the first one. And then presumably that would destroy this thing entirely, right? That if basically, if you wait until marriage, let's say both people wait until marriage and then they make love, they're perfectly safe. They never have anything to worry about. It's only promiscuous people who have something to worry about. So that's one way of dealing with it. But the other way of fighting off this monster is to then continue to pass it on, right? Just get that promiscuity to build and build and build and build and build. So then, I'm like 1,000 people removed from the monster. He'd have to tear through 1,000 people before he could ever get to me. And the monster can appear as whatever it wants, even family members and close friends, so you don't even know who to trust. So all of that, for those reasons, It Follows is a brilliant film. But then on top of that, the way it's filmed in Detroit, and with this melancholy view of the city, because if you know anything about the urban decay in Detroit, more than any other city in the Rust Belt, it has just been devastated by a declining population and urban poverty. But it at one point was an incredibly wealthy city in America. So to see these beautiful buildings that are now derelict, and that's where the entire setting is of this thing, which fits so well with some of the themes of this. I could talk about this movie all day long. It's terrific. So that's It Follows. Okay. My next one, and Tyler, I know you've seen this one, is Whiplash from 2014. So I don't think anybody would have an issue with me having this film on there. I mean, I guess some people maybe it's too dark for them, but in any case, this is a 2014 film by Damien Chazelle, and it focuses in on Miles Teller, J.K. Simmons, and it's got Paul Reiser in it as well. And basically, our protagonist is obsessed with becoming, and this is what I'm saying, if you look at my list, is singular individuals, typically young men who have got this like obsession that they will pursue no matter what. And that is always a winning formula for me. Singular individuals, and especially if there's like, if it's disturbing and violent, then I go, bing, bang, bang. That's everything I want in a movie. So yeah, Whiplash works so well for me because he is intent on becoming the absolute best jazz drummer of all time. And what it takes to get to that level is certainly not for only for very few people. Very few people could ever withstand what it takes to actually become this, the physical toll that it takes and the psychological toll of having this psychologically abusive music teacher who sees greatness in our protagonist with Miles Teller and is willing to push him no matter what to get him to that level. And if he breaks, he was never meant to be the greatest. And if he doesn't, then that's how you get there. You get there by essentially abusing him. And not just in terms of music, but in terms of anyone who achieves, monumental success in a particular field. The idea that many people want to be highly successful, but they stop when it becomes uncomfortable. They stop when it pushes them too far, whatever their limits are. Then it's too difficult to do that. So they stop pursuing it. And to me, this film does such a good job because to me, it's not exactly about jazz, although it seems to be, but it's about what it takes to become a giant in your field, to the sacrifices that you're willing to make, no matter what, the toll that it'll take on your body, on your relationships, to just say, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for it. And it just does such a great job. You could apply this to sports, business, whatever. Go ahead, Ty.
It was on my quote short list.
Oh, good. Good.
It was. I really, really love that film. I mean, I was a percussionist in school, and I'm fascinated by drumming, and it's such a great film.
Right. Yeah, and anybody, like, Luke, have you seen Whiplash?
I haven't, but I do want to.
Oh, you should watch it. It's really quite good. All right, my next one is from 2015, and it is Sicario, which is Spanish for Hitman. It's an American crime thriller directed by Denis Villeneuve, who is, I believe, is he not from Montreal? I just want to double check on that. He's from Montreal. So Denis Villeneuve, he directed it, and it stars, it was written by Taylor Sheridan, and it stars Emily Blunt, Benicio del Toro, Josh Brolin, Victor Garber. Taylor Sheridan has written what are considered to be modern Westerns, 3 modern Westerns that have kind of redefined the genre, and they are some of the 3 best films of the 2010s. They are absolutely incredible. I could have done the same thing that I did with before when I was looking at like Nicholas Winding Refn, and then just said I'm just going to do Taylor Sheridan films. But it focuses in on the like FBI agents who are dealing with the drug cartels in Mexico and crossing into Mexico and then coming back into the US. And it is such a well-written film that there is so much tension, so much suspense. You're not going to watch a film. I am pretty insistent on this. You cannot find a film from the 2010s that has got more suspense or more tension and at the same time provides you with narrative obfuscation. It's not clear exactly what the hell is going on. You're just watching going, what the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? And your heart is pounding the entire time. It's incredible because it's engaging from a visceral level. It's engaging you physically because there's so much tension and suspense. But then from an intellectual level, it is engaging your brain and forcing you to say, what is the story? What's the narrative? Who are these people? What's happening? So this is working overtime. your physical body's working overtime. It is an amazing film. And I mean, it took me a long time to see it because I'm like, it's going to be a stupid action movie. I don't want to see it. It's going to be a stupid action movie. I don't want to see it. And occasionally, late at night, if, you know, when like my brain is tired, then I'm like, I'll put on a stupid action movie, right? And I can't remember if that's how I started watching it, but I think I had just heard enough things. That's basically how I discover a lot of these things, where it's like gems where I go, oh, I thought it was going to be mainstream and easy intellectually, and just all of the narrative beats are there. Oh, my list has got this whole I hate narrative beats, this whole traditional mainstream approach to screenwriting. Yeah, because Sicario does not follow that at all. Like, people would say it does, and they're wrong. But yeah, Sicario is so well done, and I know that there's a sequel to it, which I have not seen, but I don't believe that it's nearly as good. It's Sicario: Day of the Soldado. But yeah, so have either one of you seen Sicario?
No, I haven't.
But it is now on my list.
It should be.
I was just thinking it's now something that I do want to watch.
Yeah. I mean, like, I heard all of these great things, and it was one of those things where, and I'm not trying to overdo it with my praise, but I mean, I just kept hearing good things and good things and good things. So I'm like, there's no way. It's just going to be a stupid action movie, and it's not. It's really quite good. Okay, so the next one that I have is from 2016, and it is Hell or High Water, written by Taylor Sheridan. You guys may know Taylor Sheridan as being the writer of Sicario. This is what I'm saying. His third Western didn't quite make my list, but it was really, really close. So I've got 2 Nicholas Winding Refn movies and Taylor Sheridan. If we ever get written by Taylor Sheridan and directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, I think it's going to be the greatest movie in the world. So, probably not. They really don't go well together at all. But yeah, Hell or High Water is, people are slowly catching on to this film. In this past year especially, I've heard more people talk about Hell or High Water than when it first came out. Than ever, like even when it first came out. So it is a neo-Western heist film, directed by David Mackenzie, written by Taylor Sheridan, and it stars Jeff Bridges, Chris Pine, Ben Foster, and then Gil Birmingham. And the story itself is essentially these 2 young men. They've lost the family farm to a local bank with several different branches in Texas, and they ultimately, I mean, they haven't lost the farm, but they're on the verge of losing it. So the premise, more or less, is that they are going to rob the bank that is going to foreclose on the family farm, and then use that money to pay the bank to be able to save the family farm, which it sounds like much sillier than it really, really is, because this film is grim. It is gritty. It focuses in on generational poverty, and you do have some violence and good suspense throughout the film. But Chris Pine has got one of the best monologues of the 2010s in the way he describes poverty, and describing poverty as a curse. And the writing by Taylor Sheridan is so good. The way he is opposing it so strongly is brilliant. It is, and it's right up my alley, because that is one of the themes. If you focus in on poverty, I love that as a theme, and somebody who respects the struggle of impoverished people and the struggle of poverty in a real way, not in a gimmicky way, not glamorizing it, not overdoing it, but showing how it affects a person psychologically and physically, and the toll that it takes on a person and on generations and generational poverty. It's there's a lot of movies that get it wrong. This one gets it right. And so it's really, really well done. And like I say, more and more people are catching on to how good this movie is. So that's number 7. I'm almost finished here. Number 8 is, and I kind of went out of order because I had to remove Joker, so I'm going to have to go back for my last one. But number 8 is Us from 2019. So Tyler, you have seen this one, and Luke, did you watch Us?
I haven't. I did want to, but I have not seen it yet.
Okay, yeah. So it is 2019, written and directed by Jordan Peele. This is his second film, the first one being Get Out. It stars Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke, Elizabeth Moss, and Tim Heidecker. And I mean, Tyler and I already did a podcast on this. And again, this is one of those films that, I mean, I'm going to start pursuing some more academic writing and trying to get some essays published. And I'm thinking about putting it together into a formal essay, my thoughts on the film Us. But essentially, I believe that it's focusing in on post-colonialism and like decolonization. Allegorically, it's acting it out and then forcing the world to look at the structures of labor from an intellectual standpoint, and also viscerally. It works really, really well. It's a great premise if you're just looking at it on its surface, but then when you go beneath the surface of the film, and even within the film, you have this whole beneath the surface world. It works on so many different levels, but intellectually, it's doing such interesting things. And I love horror films that are elevated horror, let's call it, that are doing things that like typical horror films don't do. But like I say, like most horror films are just staying on the surface because they're not artistic endeavors. They're just attempts to make money. But this is certainly an artistic endeavor, and I love it. So you can watch the podcast if you want more of my thoughts on Us, because I've got plenty to say about it. But Tyler, did you have anything to add with that?
It is on my honorable mentions list for the and yeah, I have listed as the production companies Monkey Paw Productions as well as Universal Pictures.
Yeah, it's a co-production, so it's fair to say that it is not an independent film. But Monkey Paw is the production company of Jordan Peele.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's written and directed by him, and it's his production company. But yes, it is co-produced by a mainstream studio. So does that count as independent or not? And I'm going to say it does, considering that, he both wrote, directed, and co-produced it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that that. Let me just pull it up here. Who is it? Like, let me see. Well, Universal distributed it, Tyler. They didn't produce it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, no. I mean, almost all independent films have traditional studios distributing, but not producing. And there's a huge difference. They're basically just getting it into theaters, but they have nothing to say as far as the content, the creative decisions. And this is like, so yeah, I was right. It is an independent film.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I saw, then it said that it had Universal Pictures listed under.
As far as I know, they were not
as well. But all right.
But all of these movies you're going to see, if you look at them, then you're going to say, oh, if you look at the distributor, then you're going to say these are not independent films, but they are.
Right. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Okay, so then I really struggled to come up with 9, legitimately. I don't like doing top lists or anything like that, and that's why we're not doing top or best. It's just favorites. So I ultimately removed Joker from my list, so that's going to be like the top of my honorable mentions. But there's a film called The Way Back from 2013, and have either of you seen this?
No.
Okay, it's 2013 independent coming-of-age comedy drama, written and directed by Nat Faxon and Jim Rash. It was their debut film, and it stars Steve Carell, Toni Collette, Allison Janney, Sam Rockwell, Maya Rudolph, and like Rob Corddry, Amanda Peet. Like, it's got a great cast with it, and within the film, essentially what you have is, it's like I say, it's a coming of age drama, but it's a young boy who's got a single mom, and she's now dating this guy, and they go to his beach house for the summer, and this young boy is certainly dealing with depression and struggling through his parents' divorce. And then he ultimately starts working at this local water park, And he meets this older guy who is, I believe, the owner of the water park, Sam Rockwell's character, who him and everybody else who works there, they both meet the kid where he's at and just accept him, kind of like in like Winnie the Pooh, to make it a little bit more approachable for people. The way everybody just accepts that Eeyore is depressed, but they don't really try to change him, but they still want him to participate. That's essentially it, kind of meeting the kid where he's at and allowing him to struggle through depression, but at the same time pushing him and pushing him and pushing him to, you know, come out of his shell to some degree, to socialize, but not trying to get him to be something that he's not, but recognizing that there's something in him that's just not manifesting and trying to pull that out of him. And it is such a beautiful film, and it's so well written and directed. And as far as like just a personal favorite, then like, and for a lot of reasons, because like that's, you know, not dissimilar from my early teen years. And so that's where I'm saying it's not necessarily, I'm not saying top or best, but it really, really works for me. It speaks to me on a really deep level. And like I say, it's got an incredible cast, you know, like Steve Carell and Toni Collette, Sam Rockwell, who all have gone on to, like Sam Rockwell in particular. I believe he just won the Oscar last year, the year before, for 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbings, Missouri, which is an incredible film if you guys have not seen it. But sorry, Liam James as well is in this film, and he plays the lead role. So yeah, the way back, and also like dealing with like the mother and her struggle through the divorce and everything else. It's really, really well done. So that's my top 9.
Okay.
So that's the only one on there that I think is kind of optimistic. Everything else is dark. And then I'm like, the way back, it's like, hey, you don't have to be depressed. You can kind of come out of this, and we're going to support you and care about you, and you know, things can get better. That's the only movie I have on my list that focuses on that. But yeah. All right, so I want to hear honorable mentions. So Luke, I guess we'll start with you. What are some of your honorable mentions?
All right, so one of my first honorable mentions is The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I don't know if either of you saw that, but it's
I haven't, but
a surprisingly good spy movie. And it has my favorite, well, probably my favorite actor right now, Henry Cavill. And it's just a really fun movie, especially with the interaction between him and Armie Hammer in the lead roles. It was really funny. And yeah, so that's one of them. I also put A Quiet Place. That is one of the only horror movies. Well,
that's another one of those elevated horror.
Yeah. But that movie was really enjoyable. It's one of the only horror movies I saw this decade, along with Get Out, which is also on my honorable mentions.
Elevated horror. These all get labeled that. All of the good ones get labeled that. It's stupid.
Yeah. And then I also have Inside Out, and then Moneyball also.
Moneyball's a great one.
Yeah. I almost put it in the 9, and then I was just like, I can't decide whether it should be or not. And so I think the last one for movies that I have in my honorable mentions is Logan.
I'm surprised that didn't make either of your lists. Honestly, I was expecting that one.
It's my honorable mention for superhero.
Okay.
for the superhero category, but yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty close for me. And then, okay, this is like my big honorable mention. It's not a movie, but it's amazing. It's Cobra Kai. I thought this was going to be a really mediocre show, and then I watched it, and it was so amazing. Like, it's my favorite show right now, and I couldn't believe how good it was. Like, it was way better than it should be. Like, I was like, all right, this will probably be like a decent sequel that is just kind of.
And it's a sequel to The Karate Kid, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, and it's on YouTube something?
Yeah, YouTube Premium,
Okay.
which again is another reason why I was so surprised. I was like, oh boy, YouTube is making this, and it's a sequel to the original Karate Kid movies. I'm like, all right, this is probably going to be okay at best. And then I watched it and I was like, wow, this is like
Yeah,
a
I've
complete surprise.
I've heard that, and like not just from you, but from uh, some film critics who I really appreciate their opinion. So I went,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
I've also
But
heard good things about it. I haven't heard
yeah,
negative stuff, so.
yeah. I also love the fact that YouTube is so direct with their with their naming convention there. YouTube Premium. It's just like, oh, okay. It's one
It
step away
works.
from YouTube upcharge.
It is, but I'd rather hear that than like some like you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
keep track of all of these different
CBS All Access and
yeah, I'm like, what the hell is that? What's CBS All Access? Like at least I know what it is. Oh, premium.
HBO
You probably have to,
Now, I
that's what I'm
think.
saying. Like that doesn't tell me anything. Just tell me what this thing
Yeah,
is. Like, I mean, that's why I like Netflix. They're like
yeah.
flicks on the net. You
Yeah.
got it. It's all right there.
Yeah.
All right.
Sweet.
Was that it for your honorable mentions then?
Yeah.
Okay. Tyler?
Yeah. So I do have Joker as my honorable mention for the crime category. Um, Logan for superhero. Um, and slash adventure Wick Chapter 3. Yeah, I really love it. You know, the John Wick franchise, and like I just started watching them like this year, which is incredible. But like it's so stupid that I waited so long. But
Yeah.
I'm so happy that they are in existence. And um, yeah, for horror slash thriller, I have Us. Um, and we already kind of talked about that, so I'm gonna do a secondary honorary mention for horror slash thriller, which is The Visit. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that one,
uh,
like it's surprisingly good.
yeah, yeah. No, and I really wanted to include it, but I was just like, no, it doesn't beat out Us. And
Right.
um, uh, yeah, and for comedy, I have Zootopia. Um, because like that film is just it's so good, you know, and it's more than just a comedy, which I really appreciate. Um, um, for for science fiction, I have Interstellar. I really enjoy that film. I think that it is, uh, yeah, just beautiful in terms of visuals. It's got that emotional punch, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. And this is where you guys are well. And for biopics slash historical, I've got Dunkirk, which is, you know, another Christopher Nolan film,
Mhm.
absolutely incredible. Um, and this is where you guys are gonna start being mad at me. For musical slash fantasy, I have The Lorax from 2012. Um,
Okay.
I don't know what it is about the film, but I think that it's so enjoyable. I really love it. It's got that environmental message. Um, yeah, the music in it is it's really good. And it's a film that I did not think that I would like at all. I mean, it stars oh, what's his name? Zac Efron, and I think and Taylor Swift. And I'm
Yeah.
like I would never want to watch this movie, but it's just I don't know, it's so good.
I also
Um,
actually like that movie. So
yeah, I
that
feel like
adds
it
it
gets
into
a lot
comedy.
of yeah, a lot of people seem to either ignore it or hate it, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, it's really good. Um, and under dramatic comedy, my honorable mention is a film that came out in 2009, but I didn't see it until, you know, probably like 2014 or whatever. And I had to talk about it because it defined this not quite a decade for me, which is 500 Days of Summer. I have watched that over and over again. I own the soundtrack. I can't get enough of it. I feel like it is the story of my life, and it is, yeah, just incredible. So I couldn't go without talking about this film that I discovered this past not quite a decade.
Okay. All right. I have not seen that one. I'm
Neither
familiar
have
with it.
I, but I do want to see it.
Yeah, and I honestly, I remember when it was when it came out, I was seeing all these advertisements like all over film sites and whatever, and they just all looked so stupid. I was like, oh, like a stupid romantic comedy, like why is everybody talking about this stupid film? And then I saw it, and like I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is so good.
Does
So
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, does he have like Bruce Willis eyebrows in that one?
I don't believe so. No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Wow, I think that's already a critique for me.
Yeah.
I just find
Boo!
I
Where's
can't
Ryan
appreciate-
Johnson to put those eyebrows on?
Yeah. It's just hard to appreciate a movie where you don't change the eyebrows on the main character.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
Is it even acting?
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, so and that was directed by Mark Webb and released by Fox Searchlight. Yeah, in terms of like most of my honorable mentions are less mainstream than my actual list. And I don't know what that says about me or whatever, but
You like mainstream films. You do.
yeah,
There's
I do.
nothing wrong with that. You're in good
Right.
company. You and most people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but because yeah, Joker was released by Bronze Studios / Warner Brothers, Logan, 20th Century Fox, Dunkirk, Warner Brothers and Syncope, Zootopia was Walt Disney, but then we've got Us by Monkey Paw, Interstellar is Paramount Pictures, so whatever. The Lorax is Universal Pictures and Illumination, and then John Wick is Summit Entertainment and Lionsgate. So they're not independent, but they're just not as mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. All right, so I've got just a few on my list. So we have not. I've mentioned that Joker was certainly. It was on my list until like just a few minutes before we started, and then I came up. I was like, right, no, the way back. I had forgotten about it when I was making my list. That's the trouble. Like for me trying to make my list, then it's like I can't even use other people's lists because they're all mainstream films, and I'm like, I don't like these. I'm like looking at like 100 of the best movies of the last decade. I'm like, no, I don't like any of these. So I tried to find a list that matched my taste, but it was really hard. So in any case, the Joker 2019 is certainly right up there. The Witch by Robert Eggers is independent horror film. It's a period horror film. It's elevated horror, and it is one of the best horror films of the past decade, and it is so good. It is so brave. The writing, the accents that they use, where it's difficult to even understand the characters at time, the setting of it, that you've got very few characters in this, the themes of the film, they're all brave and challenging, and unlike most stuff, like unlike 99% of stuff that gets produced, it's kind of out there. Independent cinema, it's pretty mainstream for independent cinema. It's certainly not avant-garde by any means, but compared to mainstream cinema, then it is totally out there, and it did really, really well. And then he, of course, was able to get The Lighthouse made this year, which I have yet to see, but it's one of those things where that was his debut film, and if you can do well enough with your debut film, then they let you do another. So it's nice to see. I like supporting independent writers and directors. So hopefully they can get more stuff made, and I'm constantly trying to vote with my wallet. I want less of that stuff and more of this stuff. So there's that one. Hereditary, I only just saw. I've heard nothing but good things about it, and I can say that not as far as my favorite, although it's quite good, but I would say that I would not argue with anyone who would say that Hereditary is the best horror film that we've had in the past not quite a decade. It is spectacular, and it's from 2018. Toni Collette, so that's the second time she's kind of on my list here, and Alex Wolff, Billy Shapiro, Ann Dowd, Gabriel Byrne, and it's an A24 production. So A24 just makes nothing but good movies, it would seem. And anyway, it's really spectacular. So that one's on my list. Captain Fantastic, which sounds like a superhero movie, but I assure you it is not a superhero film at all. Captain Fantastic, I would say, is the inciting film for me to get my master's degree. I saw it and literally that night started researching master's programs because it made me realize just how much I love academia and academic research and wanting to pursue that further. Literally, it was that night I watched it, and then I immediately started talking to my wife about going into my master's program, which you're going to, like, if you watch the film, then you say it's not about academia. It doesn't take place on a university campus, and in fact, they're kind of like, you don't need to go to university to be an intellectual, to follow academics, and it's really not about academia at all. But if you watch it, then you'll catch enough of it because it's very intellectual characters, but a very out there family. It's a comedy drama written and directed by Matt Ross, starring Viggo Mortensen, Frank Langella, Catherine Hahn, and Steve Zahn. And I'll just read just a little bit here. The story centers on a family that is forced by circumstances to reintegrate into society after living in isolation for a decade. And it's kind of a quirky family. There is some comedic elements to it. It's an independent film, obviously. And basically, they've been living in the woods, this family, and they've been raising their children, and they've eschewed society entirely. And it's like, we don't care what mainstream society wants or thinks. Their parenting techniques, education, food, like entertainment, forget all of that stuff. We're not interested in any of that. We're going to raise our kids the way we want to raise our kids and live our life the way we want to live our life. So naturally, this very much appeals to me because I hate most mainstream things. And so, yeah, for that reason, then it's a beautiful film. It's really focusing in on grief and mourning and trauma, but the beauty that can come out of even those dark moments in life and how to move on after losing a loved one, and kind of a different family. It's really great. It's really, really great. And the last one that I've got on my list is Free Solo, which is a documentary about Alex Honnold, who is the first man to free solo climb El Capitan in Yosemite National Park, which is in California. And it is Jimmy Chin directed it. It is beautifully, beautifully filmed. It's too late now, but it's done by National Geographic, and it's too late now to see it in IMAX or in the theater. But I was able to see it in an IMAX theater, and it's stunning. According to all of these rock climbing people, then I've never seen El Capitan myself in person, but they say the next best thing to seeing El Capitan in person is seeing this film in IMAX, because it is just beautifully shot. And for a rock face that is the most famous wall in the entire world, to say that this is the most beautiful filming we've ever had of it, then that says something, because it gets filmed all the freaking time. And that this is just the best view of it. And because I've been getting more and more into alpinism, like mountaineering and rock climbing, and it certainly stands above the rest. There's a lot of really good films about mountaineering and rock climbing, but this one is just incredible. It's really, really well done. And it did win the Oscar for Best Documentary. Yeah, that's from 2018. So it just won this past year. But yeah, it is, and it's on Disney Plus. It's on Disney Plus, guys. Watch it. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Okay.
What's it called?
It's called Free Solo. And what free soloing means is, and El Capitan is the highest rock wall in the world. It's 3,000 feet. And free soloing means no harness, no ropes, nothing. So if he has one slip, and no one else can even, no one would even try it, would even try to climb El Capitan, because one slip and he's dead. And you're literally watching it. They're filming him do it the entire time. It's essentially the most dangerous activity in the world of, being on this exposed rock face where there's basically no holds whatsoever. And the first time that it took people, I forget how long, literally years of trying to climb El Capitan. And then the first people to do it, it took them something like 3 months to work their way up the actual rock face. And, they're camping in the rock, they're putting in all these pitons where they're, basically putting in these metal hooks into the rock face, hammering them in and drilling them in. And so, using little rope step ladders to climb up, nobody could actually climb it, right? It took forever to even climb it. But then everybody who does climb it is using ropes to assist themselves, right? At the very least, to catch themselves if they do slip. But the idea of going up without slipping once, slipping and falling, is there's a handful of people on Earth who could ever possibly do it. And it took him years to even work up to this. A lot of people who are in the adventure sports community say that this is probably the greatest human accomplishment ever. If not just from an intellectual standpoint, from a physical standpoint, I think it's hard to argue with that. There's probably nothing else that's ever been done that is more impressive than what he did, and he cannot get enough credit for it. And just to watch it, there's so much suspense, even though he's okay, but you're just watching him going, he could die any second. He could die any second. And this is not a fictional story. You're literally watching a documentary, no special effects, and it's so stunning to watch. Everybody should watch Free Solo.
Okay. Well, I will remove that from my list and never watch it then.
Okay.
Just kidding. Yeah, no, I like that I got some additional films added to my list of things to watch. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I should mention that I do feel like my films do tell a little bit of or are a bit of a story about me as well. Just in general, with, I don't know, it's about people who start out, or it's about people who have differences but end up still working together to accomplish things, whether that's because of family ties or just very intense friendships, what have you, between Inside Out, with literally joy and sadness working together, X-Men First Class with Xavier and Magneto. And Saving Mr. Banks, Disney and P.L. Travers. So it's just kind of an interesting theme that I've picked up on as we've been talking about this, that it is kind of, I don't know, interesting.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting exercise that can be revealing. I wasn't surprised by looking at my list. I don't feel like anything was really revealed so much as, I guess I'll admit to this, that I love these films about the angry loner.
Right.
They're not all about that, and it's not even really about that. It's really about obsessive individuals who are willing to do whatever it takes to accomplish something, no matter what. And that's that. I would say that's the one thing that my stuff has all got that matches. And certainly for somebody like me who's in my position with in one particular domain of my life, it shows up in...
Oh, your mic went out.
How about now?
There we go.
Yeah, you're good.
As far as it probably shows up in multiple domains of my life, but in one particular domain, to be a writer and to say, because I've got one novel out, a couple short stories, and I've got other novels that are manuscripts that are ready to go, and I've got all these stories ready to go. It's just I don't care about the obstacles in the publishing industry or in Hollywood, and how much competition there is. I'm gonna be successful at this. I'm just gonna continue to just fight and fight and fight until I get what I want as far as accomplishments with this. And so looking at this, because this is the decade that I really started seriously my writing career, so to say, all of these individuals, whether it's, like Nightcrawler or Whiplash, right? Like looking at this, even Joker, right? Where it's like he finally comes into his own. It's so inspiring. People who would say that it's not, like, it's like, that's fine if it's too dark for you, but don't tell me that this dude, that it's not an inspiring film, that he finally found his identity, right? And even if society says that identity is wrong. So, that's what I've kind of noticed with my films.
For me, it's mostly the main characters. Like, I always find, like, the main character is what I love about a movie, because I'm like, especially with, like, all of these, because a lot of them is, like, especially with War for the Planet of the Apes and, like, Captain America Civil War, it's like they're trying to, like, they're still kind of confused about what the right thing to do is, but they're, like, debating with themselves whether, like, what they're doing is actually the right thing, even though they believe it is. And so for me, that's always been something that I kind of struggle with, because I'm like in doing a lot of stuff, I'm like, I don't know, I just can really like relate to that, and it is always difficult for me to be like, am I actually doing the right thing or not? And so I find that to be really interesting, and I love that in movies. So it's always like the main character, I find, for me, is like what I love, and like what they are thinking and how they're kind of dealing with things. So
right, struggling through really tough decision making.
Yeah.
Right? And like, and that makes perfect sense. That, I mean, this, like, being a teenager and moving into your 20s, right? Like, I think that's a pretty common thing, that it's not like people just know, like, they hit like 12 years old and then they just say, this is my life plan, and they don't deviate from it. It's that you've got all of these options. Like, when you're a teenager moving into your 20s, you're just inundated with, I can go down this path or this path or this path or this path, and it can definitely be confusing to know what's best for me, because then you have to do all this reflection to figure out, well, who am I, and what's important to me, what are my values, and what do I really like, what's going to be fulfilling for me in the long run, and the sacrifices that are going to have to be made to accomplish that.
Especially because, like, I mean, it's pretty much been all throughout, because, like, even with, like, when I decided to stop playing football, then it was like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm, like, doing the right thing, but I feel like it's what I need to do. And then with, like, dropping out of school and all that, like, my program in college, so it's been like, oh man, like, I don't fully know if this is the right thing to do, but it's what I think I need to do and what I should do. So when it comes up in these movies, I just really love that, and find it just like, it is really like something that I can personally relate to, and find that, like, so interesting.
Right.
And so
no, and I mean, getting back to mine, not to undercut you or anything, because I do think that's a really incredible insight there. With mine, then, I think it is, the stage of the life that I'm in, where I am looking to settle down, find someone to, spend the rest of my life with, essentially.
Check the YouTube comment section. I'm sure you'll find somebody there.
Right. Then, it's a lot, like, a lot of these stories are about, people making each other better, and just helping each other to become a better person. Even if you're looking at, like, Christopher Robin, like, he needs, his friend Pooh Bear in order to help him face reality. So that's something that I think really does hold some weight through all of these films, even though the majority of them are not about love, and many of them don't have love stories in them at all. So it's just really fascinating to pick up on that.
Maybe you're just searching for a life coach. It's not about love, just somebody who's going to help you be better. All right, this has been great. I've really enjoyed this. I don't know, maybe next year around New Year's Eve, then we'll do like best like TV shows of the past decade.
Yeah.
You know, I've already like got mine.
Right.
They're gonna be real similar.
Stranger Things 1, but not 2 or 3.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, folks, then please let us know and like and subscribe and all of that stuff. But I'm interested in comments as far as, you know, where like what your list is. I guess just that. I would encourage you to say that your top 9 of the past, not quite a decade, of the past 9 years, to see where there's overlap. And yeah, if you can comment that below, then that would be great. And tell us where we're right and where we're wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you agree with my pedantic nerdiness of this is not the end of the decade,
I'm sure everyone is going to
below.
People are only going to enjoy that comment, Tyler.
Just yeah, totally. It won't be me commenting under different profiles.
I knew it. All right, folks. Go ahead, Luke.
One more that I completely
go for it.
Totally forgot about, but I need to say this before we're done. But 42, I almost forgot about that, but that movie is amazing, and it was so good. So that's an honorable mention.
I agree. That's a really good film. I'm assuming, Tyler, it's about sports, so therefore you haven't seen it.
That is correct.
Jackie Robinson, by the way.
Gotcha.
Baseball. Yeah, first
African
American.
I'm a collaborator, so all sports being all the competition, I'm just like, I don't care.
What do you think a team is? You're collaborating on the team.
Exactly. Beat the other people.
I don't hate sports. It's just, it's not my, it's not something that really appeals to me. This whole, we're better than you. Then I'm like, I don't care.
That's what we're trying to do with the podcast. We're trying to tell all the other podcasts we're better than you.
That's right. This is a collaboration, but we're also in competition. That's everything. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
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 Ignore the bell, people. We're gonna keep going. We're still ignoring it. Don't worry. I don't know what that. I think that's the fire drill. All right. We're gonna go home. Yeah, all right, we're done.